Now, welcome. So we are excited about quarterfinal weekend. Tomás Ó Sé is on the way in a moment, but first, just want to mention a little gathering that we're having here ahead of All-Ireland final weekends. I need to think of a catchier title for that. Will, hello.
Hey, Joe.
It struck us that obviously the hurling final and the football final are back to back. There's no gap week. Do we do a football preview live show? But then what about the hurling? Hard to know what to do. So what we have decided to do this year, maybe next year we'll go bigger, but this year on Tuesday, July 15th, which is the Tuesday before the hurling final, and I guess 12 days out from football final, we are going to have a little get together here at Independent House, Will.
In the inner sanctum.
Yeah. So we thought it'd be kind of cool to do this. As opposed to like big live show, lots of people, we are going for intimate. So we have a nice little space on the 4th floor here. We're currently recording on the 2nd. We sit on the 3rd. Listen, little flex.
Makes it sound like a big office.
It is a big office. It's a huge office. The 4th floor, there's a nice little area. And we thought, why don't we invite select, really chosen few.
Yeah, this is like our key listeners, our core listeners.
MTV Unplugged. For a live recording. But we also thought, well, let's combine football with hurling. So this is going to be a vibe where, and I don't know how we'll make it work, but like Pat Spillane will be in conversation with John Milan.
Say no more.
Yeah.
Like I said, if that doesn't pique your interest.
Yeah. So it's like Jerry Seinfeld's turning up at Central Park.
Yeah. It's a smorgasbord of all our best GA contributors.
We'll drag them all in. Basically, everyone that's kind of been part of the show all year, we'll drag them on to the 4th floor and we'll talk All-Ireland football final weeks, plural. I think it does need I think the Yanks would be good at coming up with some kind of a...
Yeah.
It's All-Ireland football final fortnight.
That doesn't sound good.
No, I know.
We'll workshop it. We'll workshop it.
There's something in that it is like, oh my God, back to back. So we're going to do it on Tuesday, July 15th. We're thinking kind of 6 o'clock, 6:30, summer's evening. All our people, no cost. This is like, again, come, just enjoy a live recording, the intimacy, get photos with everyone. And all you need to do is email indosportpodcast@independent.ie, and it can be long, although preferably not too long, or short. Your favourite All-Ireland final memory. Get emotional, by all means. Go where you want to go. Doors will be at 6 o'clock, 6:30 or so. There is no cost. This is free. This is just come along and enjoy a live recording. Have a nice evening. And all you have to do to come along is email indosportpodcast@independent.ie, which is our usual email address. And we want you to send us your favourite All-Ireland final memory, story, whatever. Get creative. And we'll pick the winners, I guess.
It's like Willy Wonka's golden ticket kind of thing. And like in Willy Wonka, you will be able to bring a +1. You don't have to come on your own. So everyone who is a winner will be able to bring a friend, a well-wisher, family member, etc.
Places limited, etc. So give it your best shot, and we'll see you all July 15th. So that's our plan for All-Ireland finals fortnight. No, didn't land.
And every winner can finally answer the question in person. What's Joe Malloy really like?
Yeah, well, listen, I'll say I would no eye contact is the only request. No eye contact. So that's the plan. July 15th, Indosport Podcast, independent.ie, your favourite All-Ireland final memory, whatever you want to fire to us, and we'll pick some chosen few for a live recording on the 4th floor here at Independent House, Talbot Street, Dublin 1. So that's the plan. Our GA coverage on the podcast with thanks to AIB at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, and this year's championship has been the best in years. So AIB more excited than ever to bring fans closer to action. Check out the hashtag the toughest for more. Without further ado, we have, it's a sprint finish. Quarterfinals this week, rest week, then the semi-finals, rest week, then the final in a month. Tomás Ó Sé to look ahead to the weekend. Tomás, good to have you on. How you doing?
Hi Joe, how are things?
So let's just kind of put into context quarterfinal weekend generally, because I think it is where the serious stuff starts. It's always kind of felt that way for a long time. It's where teams circle the weekend in the calendar. This is where we're peaking. And previous form is not always a guarantee. So you have, for instance, jumps to mind, just my era, I always think of Tyrone, very, very bad year in 2008, and then arrive into Croke Park in the rain against Dublin. Everyone has beards and they're manic and they win. Following year, and people are drawing a parallel between Kerry 25 and Kerry 09. You guys in worse form than the current Kerry team, and you just explode in Croke Park. The start of the Earwigs game, as Pat Gilroy remembered Dublin, you're up by 14 points at half-time. It's like the most, everything beforehand was irrelevant. Here we are in quarter-final weekend moment I can remember. So talk to us about that. Quarter-final weekend, your memories even of 09, and that's kind of the context through which we can kick off this chat.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people comparing it now to the situation that they have at the minute. And look, I can't compare. The only thing that I can say is that at the time we were frustrated because we played Sligo and Tralee. They should have knocked us out. There was a penalty in the last minute and Diarmuid Murphy saved. We went up, we played Antrim. It wasn't by any means convincing. There was a few things happening off the field. Myself and Gooch didn't play in and above in Tullamore against Antrim. And I remember we were travelling back down. We were working hard, Joe. This was the frustrating part. We knew we were working hard. We knew it wasn't an issue with fitness. We knew it wasn't an issue with what we were just forcing things. It just wasn't happening for us. Teams were expecting us to blow Sligo out of the water, blow Antrim out of the water, and then myself and the Gooch and others threw fire, threw I suppose fuel on the fire then, and everybody was talking about us and that we were. But I do remember
well,
the few things.
Was it a few little side session? That was the gist of it, was it? A few drinks.
Yeah, there was what it was, and then you see the problem was it wouldn't happen nowadays. I would say it was week on week. We were playing week on week. Good friend of ours was getting married in Gooch wasn't actually with me at all. There was another few members. It's well known at this stage. There was another few members of the team with me actually that socialised just as heavily as I did and didn't get. I think in hindsight, Jack could drop. He could afford to drop one or two. He couldn't afford to drop 4 or 5, which was the real truth. And it maybe suited Jack as well as it suited the rest of us. But
she's not like cute Tomás Ó Sé to be the one to get caught. That's not in keeping with the character now.
No, but I thought I was safe. I thought I was safe in Ventry. I thought I was safe in Dingle. But I obviously wasn't because there's a huge amount of people don't realise the size of Kerry, and there's a peninsula between us and Jack O'Connor down in South Kerry. And if you sat into a car, it would take you 2.5 hours to get to Jack O'Connor's house. But apparently, as the story goes, there was a neighbour of Jack's in the hostelry that we were frequenting on that Sunday afternoon. And everything went back. Now, either he was a blind man or he just didn't happen to see the chaps that I was with. But yeah, it was good crack at the time. So it was great to be able to laugh after, Joe, because what happened after then was, I do remember coming down after the Antrim game and we needed something to spark. We needed something to give us some bit of, the draw was made and we got Dublin.
Yeah.
But if anybody told you that we were sure what would happen is telling you lies. We just... It kind of brought us together. It kind of focused us. We had everybody on our backs and we just said, right, we'll just have one crack off this. And I think it was a mixture of us clicking and Dublin probably not expecting us to click on the day. And once that's what I'm on about. We had good, there was a lot of experience in that team. And once we had our foot on their throat, we didn't take it off it. We just kept going. And we didn't allow them any leeway at all. And it just kickstarted the year. And then it set it up because we had Cork again. Cork had beaten us already. And it wasn't going to happen 2 years. So it was easy to rise ourselves for the final in 2009 as well. So it was a perfect storm. But it was by no means, there was choppy waters and it wasn't planned.
Right, interesting. Okay, well that takes us nicely to Kerry Armagh, because I can see why people in Kerry are drawing certain parallels. There's hope maybe of, okay, quarter-final stage, the smelling salts at Croke Park, here we go. So this is the 4:00 game, obviously, on the Sunday. Everybody looking forward to it. Last year, the semi-final went to extra time. I suppose to stay with Kerry for a moment before getting into Armagh. No Division 1 team all the way through. So feels like a while ago now, but the surprise against Cork in the rain, they came through that in Munster, then obliterated Clare. You know, you think of Armagh's Ulster final by comparison, it's chalk and cheese. Then 3-18 on Roscommon, no problem. Beat Cork by 11, no problem. But then lose to Meath. And Jack O'Connor's talking about attitude and what's gone wrong here. And then back on track against Cavan, 3-20. So,
yeah,
big question marks here. No, but there's no form to be sure of.
No, and I think if you go back to the one thing I'd point to, and I can see all the question marks that are there and why they're there, and look, they have no control over what they face in Munster, and I always think that Cork are better than people give them credit for. But if you're a Kerry player and you're listening to Cork are crap, Cork are terrible, Cork you should be beaten by Cork by 15 points, and if you're not beating them by 15 points, there's an issue. And suddenly, when Cork should have won the game, then this outside noise does become an issue, and then you continue on that. The Clare game is absolutely no help. I think the big one was they were qualified in the groups. They did their business. They looked after whatever matches they had early on, and it was the Meath game then that starts putting these question marks straight back into people's heads, and couple that with the injuries that they're shipping at the moment. Paddy Clifford was out. You have Diarmuid O'Connor gone. You have Barry Dan O'Sullivan gone. You've basically your midfield gone. You don't know where Paddy is at, and he has been the main man for them all year long. So David Clifford is flying. He's absolutely lifting. He's got better as the championship has gone on. So a lot of the talk in Kerry and outside of Kerry would be is there an over-reliance, and what happens if and when Armagh box David Clifford in? So there's an amount of questions to be answered, Joe. And I think if you rewind back, the same questions now, it's not the same level of danger involved, but questions were being asked of them in the league as well. And I remember when Armagh came to Tralee, there was huge questions asked, and Armagh were going well in the league. And Kerry turned up that night and gave a great performance. There was also questions they could have gone down just as quickly as winning the actual National League this year. They could have been relegated against Tyrone, but when their backs were to the wall, they performed as well. So I genuinely think that Kerry would have an absolute brilliant chance of winning on Sunday. But, and I put a but in with it, you're taking into account that their starting midfield are gone. So you're probably going to end up with a midfield with Joe O'Connor and Sean O'Brien. Now, Joe has been outstanding, and Joe will more than cover midfield. But if they had a full team, I would imagine that they'd have Diarmuid O'Connor and Barry Dan O'Sullivan, which would allow Joe O'Connor go into the half-hour line. That's not there. Right. I think the winning and the losing of the game, Joe, in simple man's terms, will be how well Kerry perform in that middle eight. That middle eight, I've no worries for David Clifford. I don't think he will be as prolific as he has been all year, but David Clifford won't leave you down. David Clifford will score. The others, Paul Ganey is going to be a huge loss if he's not inside in that full forward line. I'm not sure where he is with injury, but he'll be a massive loss because he's the second behind Clifford in terms of scoring from play. And if you can set a platform in that middle eight, and it's a huge if, but I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them if they can go after Rafferty inside and goal. Not every time, because he's just outstanding. I think he's the best keeper in the country. But if you can rattle him a small bit more than other teams have been rattling him, if you can ensure that your own kickouts are of a good quality, and the key thing is if that half back line and half forward line can be a threat and have an edge and have a bit of pace to them and have a bit of directness to them, I'm telling you, they will rattle Armagh because everybody is expecting Armagh to win. Don't get me wrong, I see the full strengths in Armagh, and I see a very, very well coached team. I see a team that can threaten you from everywhere. That pace, that little bit of unpredictability with Rian O'Neill is back as well. You know, they're so structured, they're so organised, they're so meticulous, but he gives you that maverick kind of unpredictable, very hard for a defender to pin him down. So they have a lovely balance. They have a great physicality. They're really organised, and it is stacked against Kerry. If you were put me to the wall, I'd probably say Armagh, but it wouldn't surprise me in any way if Kerry took them, but they'd have to win that middle eight battle.
And how likely do you think that is? On paper, how far are they off Armagh's middle eight, given the injuries?
Yeah, I think you see that middle. I do a lot of talking with fellas, and I be there. The way Kerry have been playing, they'll have to perform on a higher level than they've performed all year, and more consistently. You know, they played extremely well again. Now everybody will say, "Oh, it was Cavan." They worked like dogs in that first half. They moved the ball really intelligently and quickly. And then for some strange reasons, teams do it and you can't afford to do it with the new rules. they think the game is over and they take the foot off the gas and they stop doing what they're doing, and next thing they're back to 2 or 3 or 4 points again. So if you ask me, the Armagh middle eight are more than likely going to perform. And there's more question marks about Kerry, obviously, because they haven't performed. If they did, they wouldn't have got caught by meat. I don't care what fellas were missing. And that's the issue. And that's why the questions are still landing at Kerry's door, because again, there was only a couple of weeks ago, they go up and yes, you're missing players of a really, really good quality, but that's not good enough. It's not good enough that attitude is questioned and that's an issue, because it shouldn't be an issue. And I guarantee you, with the fact, the nature of long kickouts and all that, devilment and scrapping and willingness to dive and put your body on the line is just as important as any tactical know-how in terms of finding space with kickouts, because more than 3/4 of the kickouts are bang up in the air.
Yeah.
And if Kerry have possession and can put ball in to David Clifford quickly, I don't care, coupled with a good running game, they will rattle Armagh, because there's no team in the country, Joe, no team in the country, and I'm specifically including Donegal and Armagh in this, that can say that they are as tight and airlocked at the back. They're not. They're not.
They've all been conceding goals. That is a point I wanted to mention to you. And what is the word on Paddy Clifford? Obviously, he got a few minutes into the legs last day out, but I mean, you compare where he is this year versus recent years, where he was absolutely flying and exceptional and teak tough and fit and just running things. That's obviously major con for Kerry. Have you heard through the grapevine how he's looking?
I haven't heard a word, to be honest with you, and I like the fact that you don't hear a word anymore about it. But you see, what's he going to have to? The two Cliffords, what are they going to expect? They're going to, if Armagh are going to beat Kerry, then they're the two men they're going to start with, over any other two men.
Yeah.
And are they going to put one man? Are they going to put two? They will put two man markers, obviously, on the two of them. But very often, Paddy makes the rest of the team click. Paddy could be in our full back line, he could be in the half back line, he could be around midfield, he wanders, he gets on possession, he links up play. It's not always to David, he'll link up the half forward line. He's absolutely key. He'll always pop up with 2 or 3 scores, he'll end up on the end of it. He's great around breaking ball, he adds that little pace, he has that little bit of devilment about him. So arguably, and 'tis a crazy thing to say, arguably as important, if not more important than David at times during matches. But if you're Armagh, if you're Kieran McGeeney, you start out by setting out your stall. Right, they're the two men we go after, first of all. So there's a challenge there put to David and Paddy straight away. Right, we're going to even get extra attention. So how do I get involved into the game? They'll be patient, I think, as the game wears on. They're too good of players, in my opinion, Joe, for them not to have an effect on this game. And I think everything that's been thrown at the Kerry team, I think you're going to get a reaction in general. But particularly with Paddy, is there a question mark the fact that he's missed 3 or 4 weeks of real sharp stuff?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. And I don't know where he is with the injury. The fact that he came on for any part last weekend is a good sign in my eyes. They probably felt that they didn't need to risk him for a full game, but they possibly would have if they had to. So it's good that he's there, and I'd imagine that he'll be raring to go. Yeah. And I don't think for him that the fact that he's been out will be an issue.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
On David for a moment then, and Armagh goals you mentioned. So 3 conceded in 3 games in Ulster. They, in the group stages, the round robin stages, conceded 2 goals against Derry. Nothing against the Dubs, although that was a strange game. The Dubs shooting boots were very much off, and they did create chances. Armagh also conceded 2 goals against Galway. So, as you said, it's not shutouts all season on their part. The thing about Clifford, David, that is, so it's amazing last year when you remind yourself in that semi-final against Armagh, Barry McCambridge was on David Clifford. McCambridge went off with a limp 2 weeks ago against Galway, but I think he'll be all right to play Sunday. Armagh will certainly do everything they can to get him out on the pitch, because last year, kind of extraordinary man-marking job in that he kept Clifford to a single point from play, scored a goal himself. So fairly remarkably, the McCambridge-Clifford matchup was a 2-point win net for Armagh. So you reckon Clifford's in better form this year?
I think David Clifford's in unbelievable form this year. I think I think he's like everybody in Kerry. I was on the RT with Chrissy McCaig last day, and very interesting lad, and we were spending a bit of time, and he just asked me, "Will Clifford go down as the greatest ever Kerry player?" And I hate questions like that because I'd dig deep on a question like that, and I'd be talking about Jacko and Mick O'Connell, which I haven't seen much of. But it's very hard to compare Jack O'Shea or Seamus Moynihan with Colm Cooper or David Clifford. So I hate talking about who's the greatest. But I asked him, I said, "Do you ever mark him?" And he says, "I did, yeah." He says, "I've never, ever come across somebody who can do stuff on the field like he does." And he says, "The biggest thing that jumps out is the actual size of him." He says, when you see him stand up close to him, and I suppose in the last number of years, Joe, he hasn't hit the standards. He hit high standards, and people said, right, once he comes out of minor, that will stop. It didn't stop. He kept setting those standards for himself. He had one quiet year, and suddenly people were questioning everything. I think he's been outstanding this year. I think in the games that Kerry were poor, and I watched closely to the Meath game, for example, the Cork game, for example, he was still chipping in any ball that was going in. He was beating his man. He was creating. He was scoring. So McCambridge would see it as him having David Clifford's card, marked his card. But I think it's more of an Armagh team would have it. And this is the challenge for Kerry. Kerry need to stand up all over the pitch, and Kerry need to engage all over the pitch, and Kerry need to ensure that they're moving the ball at lightning pace, but that they're competing and they're not backing off Armagh in any way, because I think Armagh gains strength from collectively dealing with an attacking threat. They are wide open at the back. Barry McCambridge is an outstanding player, brilliant player, has been brilliant for Armagh attacking as well as defending. But I would question, is there any defender in the country that would hold Clifford if he gets enough ball? Collectively, they'll keep him quieter than he has been all year.
Yeah.
But he'll still have an impact. I remember it was a Tyrone that turned Kerry over a number of years ago. And your man still, he was the one fella that stood up. He was the one fella that stood up. And from a Kerry point of view, what you're hoping for on Sunday is that more fellas stand up and more fellas create this environment that Armagh find it very difficult to breathe in, because that's what Armagh thrive on. Armagh are after going through an Ulster Championship that is as they believe that Kerry are not used of the intensity that they're used of. They believe that if they are in the game in the last 10 minutes, that they will just nudge ahead like they did last year of Kerry. Now, Kerry haven't, and this is a huge factor, Joe. You can basically judge whatever amount of shots teams get off in matches, right? It's normally around 30. I don't know what it is. Kerry are well shy of that number. So, but what Kerry are, more so than any other team, is they're more clinical. Their shot percent, they don't miss a lot.
Right.
They don't hit a lot of wides. They're very clinical up front. Gainey's part of that, and that's why he'll be a huge loss. But that's why I'm arguing about the middle eight. If we can keep that pressure constant, if we can get enough ball up there, I think that's how you have to attack the Armagh strength of collective defending. You can get a quick ball in. Watch how quickly Armagh will tackle and slow ball down in the middle third.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it through all day. But I think, yes, they have been opened consistently throughout this year. They've been opened, and so has every other team. It's just a matter of owning enough ball to do more damage.
Yeah.
So I do think that McCambridge gets help out the field more so than inside, but he's well capable of looking forward to David Clifford. But I think David Clifford is playing a lot better than he has been in recent past.
Great. Well, look, it sets it up amazingly well. Because in the recent years where Kerry have been turned over on big days in Croke Park, so much of the game goes through Clifford, like the energy and the ebb and flow of the game. And there have been days, the big days where it hasn't gone well for Kerry, where opposition are on top of him. He almost feels a pressure, I think, at times to take on a Hail Mary shot. Like, I have to shoot here. This is sort of on. I'm backing myself. And if he's having a slide off there, has a miss, and there's cheers from the crowd, and a little nudge from him at Cambridge or someone else, and a word in the ear, and they're all G'd up, and it's a more significant wide than another player hitting a wide, and it can kind of compound. And I sometimes think Kerry players, if Clifford gets off to a not great start, I do think some of those Kerry players think, shit, one of those days. I think that has happened to them.
I 100%, and I think that's where the attitude has to be different. If David gets rattled, not rattled, but let's say exactly what you're after describing happens, he takes on a shot, maybe that's forced, he kicks it wide, you have a huge Armagh, brilliant support getting on top of everybody. The next thing, you have somebody roaring into David. That's the time, right? What we'll do here now, lads, is we'll get reset on the kick out. We'll crack Rafferty. We'll get another. We'll put it into David's hands again. And I guarantee you, he'll kick it this time. Because if anybody will answer. But what's the opposite to that, and then what hammers into the psyche even harder, is after, if David misses and Armagh get possession, go up the pitch, kick a score, then you've double hammered.
Yeah.
You're double hammered. And then questions start. And this is where the mental toughness will have to come in on a collective basis, that no matter, because half of Armagh's strength, I feel, is mental strength. And I think it's drummed into them from McGeaney. It's absolutely drummed. It's why they're still in matches when they shouldn't be at end of games, no matter what. So that's where Kerry will really, really have to match Armagh. It's going to be huge, show. I don't think I've looked forward to a game in a long time. And you have great games over the weekend. You have a potential upset with Monaghan and Donegal.
Yeah, we'll get there now. One last one, just before I get to ask. You mentioned the crowd, and it was interesting. Clifford put out the call, come up, support us. Like, please support us, for God's sake. What's the word on Kerry travel?
I don't know. You see, I see where Jim is stoking fires above in Donegal, and he's talking about the time. I'm telling you now, Kerry would gladly take a Saturday game, because the fact that it's on 4 o'clock on a Sunday evening, Joe, means a lot of people I don't think will travel. I don't genuinely think an amount of Kerry people will travel. I'd say you'll have 10, 15,000 that will go up to it. And you never know. I think it's obviously Jack has put out the word, David Clifford has put out the word. It is huge. It is huge. Armagh will travel. They're absolutely infatuated with it. They will travel, and I think it can be an issue. But whoever will show up from Kerry will be your regulars, I reckon.
Okay. Donegal Monaghan then. Donegal Monaghan. So it's a tale of different preparation here again, a bit like Kerry Armagh. We all know about Donegal and their unhappiness with the schedule. McGuinness talked about it plenty across the last couple of weeks. At least against Louth, he subbed off several, kind of 50 minutes on the clock. They won by 16 points, so they didn't have to go to the well the last day. Nonetheless, they have played 8 games in 11 weeks. They wanted the extra day recovery, wanted to play on Sunday, and they weren't given that. And they released a statement on Monday night just to say how disgusted they were with the whole thing. Monaghan, by contrast, they lost in Ulster, obviously, to Donegal by 2 points, but that was 20th of April. Monaghan then had 5 weeks off. They sailed through the round-robin stages, big scores, 123 against Louth, 125 against Clare, 227 against Down, then another week off, and now they pitch up in Croke Park on Saturday. So we have very different preparations here. Which squad would you rather be in?
I think I'd rather be in Donegal. They have a better squad.
Preparation, though. If you're as an individual player.
I know. I look, and don't get me wrong. I give Monaghan a huge shout here. I think this is probably a game like Armagh will be expected to beat Kerry. I think Donegal will be expected to beat Monaghan, but it wouldn't actually surprise me if Monaghan. I think you can look at it two ways, Joe. Are you telling me that Jim McGuinness is above telling the Donegal lads that this is hampering their preparation and that they won't be right, or they'll be fatigued, or he is in his backside. I think, has to deal with the situation. Don't get me wrong, they could do with a break, and I know it's been really intense, but that, if you want a deeper argument, that's the nature of the provincials again, once again, and you have coupled with the fact that it's the most competitive province above there. You are going to have teams that are playing early on in that championship who get a huge break, because the fact that the group stage doesn't start until later on, and there's an amount of football to be played in between. But look, I don't know. Sometimes, okay, I'll put it like this, Joe. Last weekend, Louth travelled to Donegal. and the bus was late, and they landed at 3:15 with a game at 4 o'clock, and they asked for the game to be put back 15 minutes or whatever, and it was refused
Yeah.
by presumed Donegal. I don't know why. There is some fair enough reason, but if that's happening, I don't know. I'd find it. Galway have had plenty to travel. They've had tough journeys. Um, uh, Look, it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have said from the start that Donegal were going to have this path had they gone. They were in the preliminary in Ulster. That was the path that they were always going to have, no matter what. That was laid out, and it wasn't as if they fired in 2 or 3 games in between. But I do get it that it is really squash, and I do get that it's so intense. The game has changed. There's a lot more running involved. It can be very, very difficult. But it is. It could be Tyrone next year. It could be somebody else next year. I think I would rather be. I think they're really, really well prepared. I don't think it'll be an issue for the. I don't think it'll be the reason that Monaghan,
Win.
if they
Yeah.
were to beat Donegal, I don't think that's the reason that they would.
Because Donegal still look full of energy. I appreciate what he's saying. Now, I think he's wrong to make such a big deal of it in public again and again and again. And maybe he's saying something different to them
He's
behind
made his
closed
point.
doors. But like, why do you want that in any player's head or in the ether? Like, don't talk about it. Say it like we're loving it. It's great. Give us more games. This is what you should be
That's
putting out
why
there. I don't understand why he's putting it out there
I
to
can
this extent.
guarantee you, Joe. I can guarantee you, Jim McGuinness is too experienced a manager, and he's too sharp a man to make those comments in public if he thought that it would affect his team.
Fair
So
enough.
you can guarantee there's one message going to the team, and there's one message going to the public. And he's fighting the case and for mentality, siege mentality, on behalf of his players, and he's probably using it to galvanize them
Yeah,
and
well,
to get more out of them.
that's the only way it works. If he's saying "F
Yeah,
it, everyone's against us, we're going to show them."
yeah.
But like
So
looking at them,
using
so Loud was a it's a saunter, and then the running of Patter Mogan, Ryan McHugh. Like think of Kieran Moore last minute against Mayo. Doesn't look tired to me. Finbar, Rorty, all these guys, like they've such running power. I don't know. I'd be very surprised if they're flat against Monaghan.
yeah.
But remains to be seen.
I love watching Donegal. I absolutely love the pace. They attack, like, okay, you break it down. They attack 2 ways, Joe. They'll run the ball.
Yeah,
That's it. They'll run the ball. If they turn it over, if they get a quick kick out, they'll run the ball. If the opposition get back into situ, they're more than happy breaking you down.
yeah,
That's the 2 ways.
yeah.
That's the 2 ways. They do not all the time. Now they might change it up, but when you have players like Paddy Morgan, Kieran Moore, Finbar Rorty has been outstanding. You have McGee, you have Langan, you've Shane O'Donnell who's outstanding carrying. You have players built to carry ball, right? And if that doesn't work out for them, then they're more than happy to have their 11v11, work it around, and no better team in the country. That's it. They do not tend to try to kick it into space, which I was giving out about when they played Mayo, because Oisin Gallen was inside in his own making runs here. Plenty of very good runs, wide
Yeah.
open. Ball wasn't kicked in.
It's not
Last week,
not a fun forward
no.
full forward line to play in. I would think.
But then last weekend, I saw against Louth, and whether Oisin Gallen came out around the top of the D, around the 45, picked up oceans of ball and did really, really well with
Okay.
it. But they have excellent forwards, and Murphy has the leadership. They have a right good mix of players there. But then Jim has not changed it at all. They defend a certain way, they just drop off. They don't even, they'll pressure the ball a small bit, but everybody will drop off. They don't press, they don't look for the turnover high up. They just sprint back into their positions.
And do you know what's really interesting about that actually is when McGuinness was veering into soccer, football, and he was talking about the teams that he really liked. He always picked out teams that were high pressing, high energy on the front foot, pressing opposition kickouts. And I really thought, with the new rules in particular, I thought Donegal are going to unleash gegenpressing and GA like we've never seen. I'm a little bit disappointed they haven't done that. Like, it's retreat. He's obviously looked at it and said not worth it, but I was full sure he was going to do that.
Well, it's the three that have to stay up that'll chase and work and try to slow the ball down to a certain degree, but the rest of them are down. Where other teams, Joe, are actually leaving 6, 7, 8 players. Go on, I dare you, try to come out. There's no back pass to the goalie. Try to come out past us. So they're slowing it down there and they're getting turnovers. But he has made the decision early doors, right, we will be retreating back into our own half. But there's one thing about that. They have been, whether it's only 11 back and there's more space back there, they haven't been bulletproof at the back either. And they have been open. Now, Louth didn't test them. Louth were poor from an offensive point of view the last day. But other teams have tested them. Mayo tested them the week before and got through them. So it's not as if they're completely bulletproof and that this modus operandi that Jim has in terms of defence is going to stick. And this, from here on, Joe, it's going to be better teams.
Yeah.
And we'll see, does he probably has to. They're not going to change it up now, but they have. Look, I think the buy-in they get, the type of player he has, Patton in goal, Murphy up front, they are impressive. They're very impressive. But then again, you'd have to say Monaghan are racking up huge scores as well.
Yeah, so Bannigan, O'Hanlon, McCarron, Conor McCarthy, and you throw into that, like even against Down, Beggan kicked 3 2-pointers, so that's 6 points now. Like you can almost put Beggan, you can put Monaghan down for 6 to 8 points off Beggan, just off the bat straight away. It's a beautiful head start.
Yeah, and there's another thing you have to take into account. Whatever it is with Monaghan and Donegal, and this is something that I've never understood down south, or maybe the same in Leinster. It doesn't matter what's happening in Ulster. It doesn't matter what league you're in. It doesn't matter if you're Division 3 or Division 1. Monaghan traditionally do not fear Donegal on any level.
Yeah.
They have given Donegal bother down the years. And I know the Donegal beat him already, but it's something. It wouldn't surprise me if Monaghan really brought him down to the wire and rattled it. And the likes of Beggan, you've McCarron who comes off the bench. They have impact on both sides. They have pace. McCarthy, O'Toole, Ward in that half back line are really, really athletic and strong and can hurt teams going forward. They have McInnesby up on the other side, O'Hanlon, Bannigan. They're all Joe. Like, that's why I say Kerry, that I challenge Kerry's middle eight. The modern game, we have a player inside and they probably would have a couple of players inside that they'll be banking on, but it's the middle eight that makes the whole thing tick. And if you look at Monaghan, they are more than stacked. McCarville kicked 2 points from midfield against Down, so they will not fear Donegal on that level. And then it's going to come down to a shootout. And then if you have Beggan on fire, I'm telling you, Monaghan will have a right chance here, and will believe that they can rattle Donegal.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So that's a good way to start the weekend. That game will be followed on the Saturday by Dublin Tyrone, 6:15, summer's evening. Can't but be good, you would think as well. Con is due to be back. So like, we've watched this Dublin team all year. The Meath ambush, then that big win away to Galway, and then the strange sort of loss to Armagh, all the wides, beat Derry and Portchester when they needed to, and then beat Cork by 3 points. So Cluxton, you mentioned the kickouts, should touch on that in a moment. Cluxton in goal, Merchant, McMahon, David Byrne is their full back line, Brian Howard, John Small, Lee Gannon. Then Pader O'Cofic Byrne, maybe we should touch on. He's had a real breakout season with Kieran Kilkenny. Half forward line as well. It's McGuinness, Scully, Sean Bugler, and then full forward line will line out as Paddy Small, Cormac Costello, either side of Con. Like, it is starting to look pretty strong, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, look, there'll be an argument out there with the population in Dublin. They should be producing good players all the time. But the reality is there's been a huge challenge on Dessie Farrell to deal with the exodus of players that he's dealt with, the quality of players that he's dealt with, and then new rules in and trying to create a team. Like, I think that they have progressed so well. Like, you look at the players that he's brought through, McGuinness, Odell, Davy Byrne, I suppose they're there a while. You have the mainstays of Kilkenny, Howard. I think they're getting a lot better as it goes on. I think O'Cofic Byrne in the middle of the field is absolutely. He's a lad that's inside there, I'd imagine 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
And the old game didn't suit him at all. Now it's made for him. Because when Cluxon is anyway stuck, he'll just pinpoint it, and he will try to get a sharp one off. But Cluxon has had to change fully here. Dublin have had to change fully here. They're the best keeper in the country to guarantee possession for years. Now it's flipped, and it has taken them a while to get used to it. But I think McGuinness has been absolutely brilliant for them. And I think Scully is playing very well for them as well. And again, it comes back to my point. The middle eight, Brian Howard, they've been performing very well, and they're on an upward curve, Joe, as well. I wouldn't have given them the chance that I give them now early on in the season, I'll be honest with you. But then I'd also argue, based on last weekend as well, Con is seriously important to them, obviously. Yeah. And you'd be foolish not to say he wasn't. Lee Gannon back, Luke Brannock, they have players that'll make an impact. And the reason I'd say, one of the main reasons, who was it they played a couple of weeks ago in Croke Park, Armagh, and they were creating huge opportunities. Yeah. They just weren't taking them. They corrected that the week after. So Dublin are a team that can really pinpoint their weaknesses and still have the ability to improve the week after. So yeah, that'll be an interesting game, because you can make an argument for Tyrone as well, Joe, and Tyrone mightn't have sparked to everybody's liking this year, but they'll get a tough match from Dublin.
And it's funny, Tyrone, so Malik O'Rourke, shrewd operator, like the loss to Mayo, there was an odd dynamic to that game. Mayo probably fairly rabid given the McStay illness and new coach, and just had that kind of a week, I would suspect, and responding to the Cavan loss. So you can kind of understand why Mayo were kind of rabid that day. But like Tyrone beat Donegal in the group stages, and they only did lose to Armagh by a point in Ulster. And like traditionally, Tyrone sort of do make their minds up some way as they head to Croke Park. Right, we're going after this. So I don't know. This just has all the feel of an ambush from a Tyrone point of view. I'd say they're licking their lips. And on Cluxon, I sort of said it to you a few weeks ago, and you weren't so sure. And maybe I'm imagining things, and I'm just projecting on him because he's 42 now. I do think he's lost a few yards in his kick out. I really do. And I think teams are squeezing up that bit more in Dublin. And that's why Howard, O'Cuffik Byrne, Con coming back are so crucial. But like, I don't know, Tyrone, breaking ball, rabid intensity. I just feel they're licking their lips on the Dublin kick out. And I think it's going to be tested at more than it has at any point since the Meath game.
Yeah, and I think, the Meath game was the one they absolutely got, that I'd say forced them to go back to the drawing board completely. But you're after saying it there, sure, there's no consistency in the results that have been happening throughout the championship at all, Joe. So, like, this is what we're saying. Will we actually know more after the weekend in terms of, it's very, very difficult to call. I would agree with you. When Tyrone have shown up, they've been more than a match for anybody. The problem is that they can also produce what they produced against Mayo. Now, is it made for them? Yes, it is. But then you don't know what Dublin are going to bring to it as well. I think give it another year, give this game another year, and you won't have the inconsistencies that you might be having now. But I do think Tyrone, with the forwards that they have, McCurry has been playing a lot better than I would have given him credit for at the start of the year. Derek Hanavan has probably been struggling because he's going to get so much attention, but he has come to the fore in the last couple of games as well. But they have a physicality around the middle of the field that will match O'Cuffik Byrne. So it's going to be a brilliant match. I've no doubt that it'll go down to the wire. I agree with you. We probably have two, Niall Morgan on one side, Cluxon on the other side, and two goalies absolutely brilliant the last 7, 8, 9. Well, Cluxon, you're probably what?
20.
23, 20 years.
20 years. just brilliant for the last 20.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I don't know. I would probably tip it to Dublin. I just think that there's an edge to them. I think, they have come through matches where I thought that they would struggle. I think they dealt with their group really, really well. I think they've got better as it's gone ahead.
Yeah.
But then your argument there, is this made for one of those Tyrone performances that they have been quite enough, but when they have sparked, they are outstanding. But when Tyrone spark, Joe, it's all based on work rate.
Yeah.
It's all based on that hard edge that Tyrone are associated with. And then from that, you'll get the silkiness from up front. But that's all created because of the work outside.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, did people cop But you look at Dublin the last 2 or 3 games, and their game has been savage from work rate. Savage. So if Dublin can keep that up, I think that would be the key to unlocking Tyrone at the weekend,
Okay.
more so than anything else, more so than because that attaches itself under kickouts, that attaches itself when Tyrone are in possession, that attaches itself in defence and attack. So that's the gauge I think people should be looking at, what Dublin turn up.
Okay. Sold. Galway Meath then. Robbie Brennan versus Porrick Joyce.
Yeah, and I was asked I got a bit of stick over it. I was asked on the Sunday game, who are the teams that I'd rule out in terms. I can't see Monaghan winning in All Ireland. Maybe somebody can, but I can't see. And it was I didn't say that I couldn't see Monaghan winning a quarter final. I said I couldn't see Monaghan winning an All Ireland. I also said I couldn't see Meath winning an All Ireland. Yet I could easily make an argument for Kerry to win an All Ireland. Yet Meath dumped Kerry above and Navan and dumped them properly. So are Meath capable of turning Galway over? Of course they are. Absolutely, of course they are. But then we are I suppose guilty, Joe, of going from match to match and basing our full argument on the previous week's action, when in fact the opposition teams are zoning in on the strengths. Now, if you're zoning in on Galway from last weekend, their middle eight were very, very good, but their attacking game, their half forward, were bursting forward and then just slipping it to the silkier lads inside. Thompson was outstanding, Walsh was outstanding, Finnerty was outstanding, but it all came from Darcy, Tierney, McDade dominating around the middle, Maher, Conroy, that physicality out there, and they fed the boys. So the strength that Galway have is in that core area. But physically, Meath are well able to match Galway around that area. And they've surprised teams in terms of their two-pointer abilities. But, geez, I'd still find it difficult. If Galway, I think Galway's biggest challenge is to block out the outside noise that is everybody telling them, "Jeez, if you don't meet." That's the rock they'll perish on, and that's exactly what happened to Kerry going up there. They thought they'd have it easy, and you won't have it easy. But if you can bring what you brought to last weekend's game and a fear that it is knockout, a fear that you're going to be knocked out, I'd find it hard. I think Galway are excellent when they're really, really direct and when they're physical and when they're battling. I was impressed with them last weekend. The one area I throw at Galway, and I say you can comfortably throw it at every other team, it's by design with the new rules. You're going to be open. If you're going to commit so many men forward and kickouts and everything else, 11, you're going to be open at the back, and that's just a bit of it. If you can cut down and limit the amount that you're opened at the back, there where you get the edge. But I can't make a proper argument for Meath, and wait for it now, it'll probably go down. There could be an upset, but I'd be very disappointed in Galway if there was.
Yeah. All right. Let's list off predictions time. I'm going to give you, and you disagree here, I am giving you Dublin, Donegal, Galway. You have to go Armagh, I think. They're my 4. Dublin, Donegal, Galway, Armagh. If gun was to my head. So I for all the talk of, geez, there could be a shock there, could be a shock there, could be a shock in that game.
You know?
Gun to my head, they're my 4. Dublin, Donegal, Galway, Armagh. And I'm most nervous about
And
Kerry.
anybody that says with confidence that they know exactly out of those, like Dublin, Tyrone, you could make an argument. I think Donegal, Monaghan, you could make an argument. I think Galway Meath is probably one that would go to Galway, but then it wouldn't surprise me. It's just there's teams have got results this year that I never ever saw coming. If you put me to the pin of the collar, I would say Dublin.
Yeah.
I would say Galway.
Yeah.
I would say Donegal.
Yeah.
And I would say Armagh probably. But when I say that, I've given those 4 winners. Monaghan and Kerry are my wouldn't surprise me at all if they won.
Yeah. Okay. God, isn't that a great way to go into a quarterfinal weekend? So good.
That is my.
Yeah. Are you going up to either of them, either day?
I am. I'll go up on both days. I'll go up. I'm working on the Sunday, so I'm going up on Sunday anyway, but I go up both days. I like being at the matches, and it's great. Joe, we have, I think, I don't know, was was it Des Cahill said it the last time? He just made me think. He just said he's never ever in his lifetime. Now Des's hair color is he looks like a fresh man, but Des has been around a long while, and for him to say that the football he has seen is better than anything he's ever previously, it's just brilliant. It's brilliant to go up and know that out of 4 matches, you're probably going to get 4 crackers.
Well, we've seen, like, we're seeing the attendances going through the roof. People have come back in their droves to the game. They were aching over the last 15, 10 years for this to happen. Because it's kind of it's a cheap media kind of headline thing to say, but like I do think, and if the quarterfinal, semi-final and final continue the trend, that's probably kind of the best championship that I can remember. You know,
Joe,
I think it is the best championship I've ever seen.
but and don't get me wrong, people say I'm a champion for the new rules. I'm not. I'm just seeing what's happening in front of my eyes, and there's some brilliant matches, and there are certain rules that I still would argue that shouldn't be there, grand, but we still, on the whole, because of the combination of all the rules, have a way better game to watch. Yeah. I remember for the last number of years, we would have had the provincials, we would have had the group stages, and you'd count on one hand, the amount of good games. Now, I think it's 48 games we've played. I guarantee you there's been 40 plus excellent games in the championship.
I haven't seen a game that wasn't enjoyable yet this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then normally we're waiting to this time of the year to get the good ones. But I'm telling you, I think it's just absolutely brilliant. Like, you know, and on that, Joe, it'll all come down to the FRC, and everybody will talk about the FRC. It wasn't. It was Jarlath Burns. Jarlath Burns was the man that had the power to put the FRC together. Everybody else avoided the big elephant in the room in relation to actually attacking the game, because nobody would willingly tweak the game here and there. One rule, they dissected it, they gutted it, they probably took at it in a way that nobody else was prepared to do. So, and it's been lost. I haven't heard Burns' name mentioned once, when in fact he deserves most of the credit because of the way our game has gone.
Yeah, fair point. Got the ball rolling. Right. Sure, we might talk it next week at some stage and make sense of what happened in these 4 games. Thanks a mil, Tomás.
Not about it, Joe. Sound.